Emma sat on the edge of her neatly made bed, staring out of the window at the quiet street below. The late afternoon sun poured gold across the pavement, but somehow it did little to brighten the weight she felt in her chest. The house was silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator and the occasional chirp of birds outside. Silence used to feel peaceful, but now it seemed heavier, almost oppressive. She sipped her tea, letting the warmth spread through her hands. But it couldn't reach the emptiness that had been creeping in over the past few weeks. Life had a way of moving quickly, leaving little room to notice what or who was missing until it became painfully obvious. Emma had everything she thought she wanted: a stable home, a loving husband, a career that kept her busy and fulfilled. But sometimes, in the quiet moments like this, she felt a tug she couldn't ignore, a quiet yearning for something more, for connection beyond the predictable routine of her days. Her thoughts drifted to her sister. Lily. They had grown up in the same small town, sharing secrets whispered in the dark, laughter that could fill a room, and the unspoken promise that no matter what, they would always be there for each other. But over the years, life had pulled them in different directions. Emma had married young, moved to the city, and built a life she had dreamed of. Lily had stayed behind, chasing her own ambitions, building her independence one step at a time. And yet, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. A few weeks ago, she had received a message from Lily that made her heart tighten instantly. "Emma, I don't know where else to turn. Can I come stay with you for a while?" Emma read the words over and over, feeling a strange mix of worry and hope. Her sister, who had always been strong and self-sufficient, was reaching out. That alone told her how serious things must be. But inviting someone into their home wasn't a small thing. Their apartment, though warm and comfortable, had its routines. Their lives were balanced delicately, like a carefully stacked set of blocks. Adding someone new into the mix could change everything. She put down her cup and rested her head in her hands. Emma loved Daniel, her husband, more than she could put into words. He was patient, kind, and always willing to listen. But she had to wonder, would he understand? Would he see the need to support her sister as clearly as she did, or would he hesitate, worried about the disruption to their lives? As if on cue, Daniel's soft footsteps echoed down the hallway. He appeared in the doorway, holding his own cup of tea, his hair slightly tousled from the early evening breeze. His presence always had a way of grounding her, of reminding her that she wasn't alone in facing life's uncertainties. "What's going on?" he asked gently, tilting his head. Emma hesitated, unsure how to put it into words. She wanted him to see the urgency, the weight of the request. But she didn't want him to feel trapped or pressured. "It's Lily," she began, voice trembling slightly. She wants to come stay with us for a while. Things aren't going well at her place." Daniel listened quietly, his expression thoughtful. He didn't rush to respond or make a joke to ease the tension. Instead, he simply nodded, as if processing the information carefully, weighing his own feelings against the needs of someone they both loved. Emma watched him, noticing the gentle set of his jaw, the kindness in his eyes, and the quiet patience he always carried. "Do you think that's okay?" she asked softly, almost afraid of the answer. He reached across the table and took her hand in his. "Emma," he said, his voice calm and reassuring, "if your sister needs us, then she's welcome here. We'll make it work." A rush of relief flooded through her chest, mixed with a warmth that made her cheeks tingle. She hadn't expected such immediate support, such unconditional understanding. It wasn't just that Daniel agreed, he seemed to see the bigger picture, the importance of family, of opening their home to someone in need. For the first time in days, Emma felt a spark of hope. Maybe this change wouldn't be disruptive at all. Maybe it could be something more, a chance to reconnect with her sister, to strengthen the bond that life had stretched thin over the years, and to discover new depths of love and partnership with Daniel. She smiled faintly, almost to herself, imagining Lily walking through the door, suitcase in hand, hesitant but trusting. And she imagined Daniel, patient and kind, offering her sister the same warmth and reassurance he always gave Emma. Somehow, she knew that no matter what happened, Their family, however, temporarily rearranged to find a way to thrive. And yet, there was a small flutter of nervous excitement in her chest. She didn't know exactly how Lily's arrival would change their lives. But she did know one thing. Everything was about to shift, and there was no turning back. Emma took a deep breath and whispered to herself, "We'll be okay. We have to be." Outside, the sky began to darken, the first hints of evening stretching across the cityscape. Emma couldn't help but feel that tonight was the start of something important, something that would test them, challenge them, and ultimately bring them closer together than ever before. The knock on the door hadn't come yet, but she knew it would. And when it did, nothing would ever be quite the same. Emma sat in the living room, the soft hum of the evening filling the quiet space. Outside, the last light of day stretched across the rooftops, painting them in soft oranges and pinks. She held a mug of tea in her hands, but her thoughts had drifted far from the present. They always did when she thought of Lily. She remembered their childhood as if it were yesterday. The two of them had shared everything back then, secrets whispered under the covers during thunderstorms. Laughter that carried late into the night, and endless afternoons exploring the woods behind their old house. Emma could still feel the warmth of her sister's hand in hers, steady and reassuring. Even when the world felt overwhelming, but growing up had its own way of pulling people apart. Emma had moved to the city with Daniel shortly after their wedding, chasing a career and a life she had dreamed of, while Lily stayed behind, building her independence one step at a time. Distance wasn't only physical. It was emotional too, the kind that grew silently, quietly, until it left small cracks that neither of them had noticed until now. Emma's heart ached at the memory of their last real conversation before the drift began. They had sat on the front porch of their childhood home, the wind carrying the scent of summer blooms, and laughed about some trivial argument that now seemed so insignificant. Yet, underneath the laughter, there had been a quiet tension, an unspoken realization that their lives were moving in different directions. She missed the simplicity of those days, the way Lily had always known how to make her feel lighter, as if the burdens of the world didn't exist when they were together. Emma had never told anyone about the small pangs of jealousy she sometimes felt when she saw Lily flourish on her own. It wasn't resentment, not truly, but a longing for the closeness they had once shared, a yearning for the effortless connection that distance had made so fragile. Daniel's presence in her life had been steady, grounding, and full of quiet love. But even as she felt deeply connected to him, there had been moments of nostalgia when she thought about Lily, the shared history that no one else could replicate. And now, with Lily planning to stay with them, those memories resurfaced with startling clarity. Emma remembered a rainy afternoon when she and Lily had been stuck inside their small childhood room, bored and restless. They had built a blanket fort, shared snacks, and whispered secrets that no one else would understand. Lily had confided her fears about school, friendships, and growing up, and Emma had listened, offering comfort she didn't even know she had in her heart. It was in those moments Emma realized that the foundation of their bond had been built, trust, love, and an understanding that words alone could never fully capture. Now, as she sat with Daniel across the room, she felt that same sense of trust and warmth, but in a different form. Daniel had been there through all of her adult struggles, celebrating victories and easing disappointments, offering patience when she was impatient, and strength when she felt weak. He had never tried to replace Lily. Instead, he had complemented the love and support that Emma had always known in her sister. And yet, seeing Lily again soon, Emma felt a twinge of nervousness. Would the past connect seamlessly with the present? Or would the years apart make it awkward, fragile? She couldn't predict how emotions would resurface or whether old habits of misunderstanding might creep back in. Her mind wandered back to simpler, lighter memory summer evenings on the porch swing, laughter echoing through the garden, whispered plans for the future that somehow never fully materialized. She remembered sharing ice cream cones that dripped down their hands, and how they had always competed in silly races in the yard just to see who could be fastest. Those were the moments that had anchored her heart. the one she carried quietly through the years, even when life became complicated. Daniel's voice broke through her reverie, calm and warm. "You've been quiet," he said, setting his own mug on the table and coming to sit beside her. "Thinking about Lily." Emma nodded, smiling faintly. "I've been remembering everything. How close we used to be. How life just drifted us apart." Oh. He took her hand, brushing his thumb gently across her knuckles. "Distance changes things," he said softly. "But it doesn't have to break them. The bonds that matter the on." The next morning, Emma woke to the soft patter of rain against the window. The city outside glistened under the gentle drizzle, each drop reflecting the light in tiny, shimmering sparks. She sat up in bed for a moment, taking in the quiet rhythm of the morning, and realized how much she had been longing for this change. Even without it happening yet, a knock at the door broke her thoughts. Her heart jumped slightly. Could it be Lily? She hadn't heard her sister arrive yet, but somehow, instinctively, she knew that this day would mark the shift she had been anticipating. "Emma," a familiar voice called softly. It wasn't Lily, it was Daniel, holding a small bundle of clothes and a cheerful, slightly nervous smile. "Morning," he said. "I thought you might need a hand getting ready." Emma laughed softly, brushing back a strand of hair from her face. "You always know exactly what I need, even when I don't." Daniel shrugged modestly, but his eyes held a warmth that made her heart tighten in ways she hadn't felt in months. There was a quiet intensity in him this morning, a kind of patience and understanding that reminded her why she had fallen in love with him. As they moved through their morning routine together, Emma felt a subtle shift in the air. Little coincidences seemed to line up, as though the universe was nudging them gently toward something they had been suppressing or forgetting. Daniel accidentally brushed her hand while passing her a towel. A beam of sunlight caught his eyes in just the right way, making them glimmer like the memories she held of their earliest days together. Emma smiled, a flutter in her chest. She realized that these small moments, so ordinary, so easily overlooked, carried a weight she hadn't anticipated. They reminded her of the quiet intimacy that had always existed between them. The kind of love that didn't need words to be understood, that thrived in gestures, shared glances, and the unspoken reassurance of presence later. As she prepared the living room for Lily's arrival, Emma found herself walking past the old photo frames on the mantel. One in particular caught her eye, a picture of her and Lily from years ago. Arms wrapped around each other, grinning widely at the camera. Daniel appeared beside her, leaning lightly against the doorway. "Still the same smiles," he said softly. "Some things never change." Emma turned to him, startled by the intensity in his voice. There was something about the way he looked at her in that moment, familiar yet different, that made her pulse quicken. Not in a way that startled or embarrassed her, but in a way that reminded her of how much they had endured and how deeply their lives were intertwined. "I know," she replied, feeling her chest tighten. "It's like the past and the present are meeting again." Daniel nodded. "And maybe they need to meet," he said. His words weren't romantic in the conventional sense, yet they carried an undeniable weight. They hinted at reconciliation, reconnection, and the rekindling of emotions that had been quietly waiting beneath the surface. Just then, a loud knock echoed from the front door, pulling Emma and Daniel from their shared reverie. Emma's heart leaped. This was it. Lily had arrived. She hurried to open the door, and there stood her sister, small suitcase in hand, cheeks flushed from the rain, and eyes wide with a mix of nervousness and relief. "Emma," Lily said, her voice soft, almost trembling. Emma embraced her immediately, feeling the familiar warmth and comfort of her sister's presence. "You're here," she whispered. "It's okay. You're safe now." Daniel stepped forward, offering a welcoming smile and a gentle nod. "We're glad you're here, Lily. You're part of this family now, no matter what." As Lily stepped inside, Emma noticed a subtle shift in the room's energy. The house felt fuller, brighter, as if the walls themselves had been waiting for this moment. There was an unspoken understanding between the three of them, A silent agreement that their lives were about to change, but in a way that could only bring them closer together. Later, while unpacking a small bag, Lily held up a photograph of the three of them from a summer picnic years ago. The image showed laughter, sunshine, and a bond that time had never fully eroded. Emma felt a lump rise in her throat. Daniel moved closer, his hand brushing lightly against hers as they both looked at the photo. For a moment, the past and present seemed to blend seamlessly. Emma could feel the love, loyalty, and understanding that had always existed between them, stretching forward into the future. There was hope here, yes, but also a quiet acknowledgement of the challenges and adjustments ahead. The twist of fate wasn't dramatic or shocking, it was subtle, almost gentle, but it carried immense emotional weight. Daniel looked at Emma, then, his gaze steady and reassuring. "We're going to be okay," he said. "More than okay. We're going to be stronger together." Emma felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes, not from sadness, but from a profound recognition of how far they had come. The arrival of Lily, the alignment of their shared memories, and the quiet strength of her husband's love had reignited something deep within her, something that whispered of family, connection, and the beauty of life unfolding in unexpected ways. She smiled, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. "Yes," she whispered softly. "We really are going to be okay." Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the world fresh, glistening, and new. And inside, Emma felt a shift in her own heart, a subtle but undeniable stirring of hope, love, and the promise of brighter days ahead. The past had reconnected with the present, and together they were ready to face whatever came next. The evening had settled softly over the city, casting long shadows through the windows. Emma sat in the living room, a book half forgotten in her lap as the soft hum of the heater filled the silence. Lily had retreated to the spare room to unpack, and Daniel had gone to the kitchen to make tea. The house, once quiet in its lonely rhythm, now felt full, but the fullness brought more than comfort. It brought the weight of unspoken words, memories, and emotions that neither Emma nor Daniel had yet voiced. Emma's gaze drifted to the doorway, remembering how Daniel had looked at her earlier in the day. There was something in his eyes, soft, patient, almost hesitant, that spoke louder than words ever could. It made her heart ache in a way that was almost unfamiliar, a mixture of longing and quiet recognition. She realized she had been avoiding a truth she couldn't ignore any longer, even in the safety of their shared life. There were feelings she had left unspoken, emotions quietly tucked away beneath smiles and routines. She remembered the early days of their marriage, how easily they had talked about hopes, dreams, and even fears. Over time, life's responsibilities had crept in: work, bills, and the subtle push and pull of adulthood, leaving less room for quiet vulnerability. Yet now, with Lily in the house and old memories resurfacing, Emma felt the walls she had built around her heart starting to soften. Daniel returned, carrying 2 steaming mugs of tea. He placed one gently on the table beside her, and their fingers brushed as he sat down. The touch was fleeting, but it sent a ripple of warmth through her chest. He didn't speak immediately, as if both of them were waiting for something delicate to surface. Finally, he said softly, "I've been thinking about how fast things change, how sometimes we forget to say what we feel until it's almost too late." Emma swallowed, feeling the words sink in. She wanted to respond, to tell him that she had felt that way too, but the words seemed heavy on her tongue. Instead, she nodded, letting the silence between them speak. Daniel's eyes held hers, steady and sincere. "Emma, I know I don't say it often enough, but I love you. I always have. And seeing you care so deeply for Lily, it reminds me why." Emma felt a lump rise in her throat. She had never doubted his love. Yet hearing it spoken aloud in this quiet, intimate moment struck her in a way that nothing else had. She wanted to say the same, to let him know how much he grounded her, how much his presence made her heart feel safe, cherished, and alive. But still, the words hovered on the edge of her lips, unspoken, because part of her feared breaking the fragile rhythm of their lives. "Daniel," she whispered finally, her voice trembling just enough to betray her emotions. I felt it too, more than I realized. I guess I was afraid that saying it out loud would change everything. He reached across the table and held her hand, their fingers intertwining. Some things don't need to change. They just need to be acknowledged. That's all. Emma nodded, letting herself breathe in the warmth of his presence. The house was quiet around them, but within that silence was a depth of emotion neither had dared to fully explore before. It wasn't about passion or drama, it was about the quiet, enduring connection that had always existed between them. The kind of love that held steady through years, through absence and distance. Through moments of hesitation and doubt, she thought of Lily upstairs, unpacking, unaware of the subtle tension that had settled over the room. The arrival of her sister had stirred memories, reflections, and a renewed appreciation for what she had in Daniel. And in that awareness came along a quiet desire to be even more present, more open and more honest than she had been before. Daniel's gaze softened. I know things feel different now with Lily here, and I know we'll have to adjust. But I also know we can face it together. Whatever comes, we face it as a team. Emma's eyes glistened with unshed tears. I've been waiting for a moment like this, she admitted. A moment when it's safe to say everything we feel without fear or hesitation. The morning sun streamed through the windows, catching on the edges of the living room curtains and filling the house with a golden glow. Emma stood at the kitchen counter arranging breakfast plates, but her thoughts were elsewhere. The past week had been a whirlwind of small adjustments, quiet conversations, and stolen moments that reminded her just how much life could shift in a few short days. Lily had settled in more comfortably than Emma had expected. She moved around the apartment with a quiet ease, laughing at small jokes, asking questions, and slowly filling spaces that had felt empty for far too long. But while her sister's presence brought warmth, it also stirred something deeper in Emma, longing for honesty, for the unspoken truths she and Daniel had only begun to explore. Daniel entered the kitchen quietly, holding a steaming cup of coffee. He watched Emma for a moment, the corners of his mouth lifting in a gentle smile. You look thoughtful, he said softly. Emma returned his smile, though a flicker of uncertainty lingered in her eyes. I've been thinking a lot about everything, she admitted. About Lily, about us, about how we handle the things we don't say. Daniel set his cup down and approached, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. Sometimes the hardest truths are the ones we're most afraid to share, he said. But keeping them inside, that only makes them heavier. Emma's heart tightened. She had felt that heaviness in her chest for weeks. The weight of memories, unspoken emotions, and longings that had never found their voice. She had always trusted Daniel implicitly. But the fear of expressing certain feelings, fear that they might complicate or disrupt, had kept her silent. Just then, Lily appeared at the doorway, carrying a small stack of freshly folded laundry. I hope I'm not interrupting, she said, her tone bright but hesitant. She placed the laundry on the counter and glanced between Emma and Daniel. There was a softness in her gaze, a silent understanding that she, too, had sensed the subtle shift in their household. Emma took a deep breath, feeling the moments settle around them like the calm before a storm. Actually, Lily, maybe this is a good time, she said slowly. I've been meaning to say something to both of you. Something I haven't been able to put into words until now. Daniel's hand found hers again, fingers entwining. His eyes were steady, encouraging, reminding her that she didn't have to carry this weight alone. I realize, Emma began, her voice trembling slightly, that life is short, and we don't always say what matters when it matters. I've been afraid to admit it, even to myself, but I need you both to know something. She paused, taking a steadying breath. I love you, Daniel. I've loved you through everything, through the busy days, the quiet nights, the struggles we didn't always talk about. And I've always loved Lily, my sister, my family. I want us all to be closer, to support each other, not just today, but always. For a moment, silence filled the room. It wasn't heavy or uncomfortable. It was full of meaning. Lily's eyes glistened with unshed tears, and Daniel's expression softened. Relief and admiration mingling in his gaze. Daniel spoke first, his voice quiet but firm. "Emma, I've known it all along, even when you couldn't say it. And I feel the same. I love you, and I respect everything you care about. Seeing you care so deeply for Lily, it only makes me love you more." Lily stepped forward, her voice wavering but sincere. "Emma, Daniel, thank you. I've felt the distance between us for so long, but being here, seeing you both, it reminds me that family isn't just about being in the same place. It's about understanding, trust, and love. I'm grateful I can be part of that now." Emma's chest felt lighter than it had in years. The unspoken weight she had carried, the hesitation and fear that had kept her words trapped, finally lifted. Daniel pulled her into a gentle embrace, and Lily joined them, placing a hand on Emma's shoulder. For the first time in a long while, all three of them stood together, connected not just by blood or routine, but by honesty, love, and a shared commitment to each other. The room seemed to glow, filled with warmth and hope. The past week's small coincidences, the moments of lingering glances, quiet gestures, and gentle reassurances had led to this moment. A moment when hearts were opened, feelings acknowledged, and the invisible threads that bound them together had been made visible. Emma stepped back slightly, looking at Daniel and Lily with a smile that felt unburdened and real. This is what family should feel like," she said softly. "Honest, loving, and unafraid to show it." Daniel squeezed her hand, a silent promise of partnership and patience. "And it will continue to feel that way," he said, "because we're choosing it together." Lily nodded, eyes bright. "I've never been more certain of anything," she said. "No matter what happens, we'll face it as a family." Emma felt tears prick at her eyes, but they were tears of joy, relief, and hope. The turning point had come not through grand gestures or dramatic events, but through truth spoken aloud, shared, and embraced as they stood together in the kitchen, the sunlight streaming through the window. Emma realized something profound. Sometimes, the hardest step isn't in making love known, or in resolving conflict. It's in speaking the quiet truths that live inside us, trusting that the people who matter will meet us there. And in that moment, surrounded by the people she loved most, Emma knew they were ready for whatever came next. The sun was low in the sky, painting the city in soft shades of gold and pink. The gentle hum of evening filled the apartment, a quiet backdrop to the small but meaningful motions of daily life. Emma moved through the kitchen with a lightness she hadn't felt in weeks, setting out cups of tea while the aroma of freshly baked bread lingered in the air. Lily had been bustling about, organizing her small space in the spare room, but now she appeared in the doorway with a warm smile, carrying a small plant she had picked up earlier. "I thought this could brighten the living room," she said, placing it carefully on the windowsill. Emma glanced at Daniel, who had been quietly reading in the armchair. He looked up at the plant, then at the two women, and a small, satisfied smile spread across his face. "Perfect choice," he said simply. "It feels like us." Emma felt her heart swell. The house no longer felt quiet, no longer felt empty. It was alive with laughter, movement, and the subtle rhythms of a family rediscovering itself. The tensions and hesitations of the past had been spoken, acknowledged, and released. Now there was a lightness, a sense of balance that felt both comforting and invigorating. "Emma," Lily said, stepping closer and resting a hand on her sister's arm, "thank you for inviting me. I didn't realize how much I needed this. All of this." Emma smiled, her own emotions bubbling just beneath the surface. "We're glad you're here, Lily. Really glad. It feels right, having you back." Daniel Rosen came over, placing a hand on Emma's shoulder, then reaching out to Lily. "Family isn't always about where you are or what you do," he said. "It's about being there for each other, showing up even when life gets complicated. And we're doing that together." For a moment, the three of them stood in quiet acknowledgement, letting the weight of the words settle. It wasn't a grand gesture, and there were no dramatic proclamations, but the significance was palpable. They had reached a point of emotional clarity, a place where love, respect, and understanding could flourish without fear or hesitation later. As they sat together around the small dining table, the conversation flowed naturally, filled with laughter, stories from the past, and shared plans for the future. Emma noticed the way Daniel looked at her, gentle, proud, and filled with quiet affection. She realized that in all the uncertainty, the moments of hesitation, and the unspoken emotions, one thing had remained constant: their love, steady and unwavering. Lily shared a memory from childhood, and all three of them laughed, the sound bright and warm. Emma felt tears prick at her eyes, not from sadness, but from the sheer depth of gratitude. Life had a way of pulling them apart and pushing them together. But moments like this reminded her of what truly mattered: connection, honesty, and the courage to embrace it fully. After dinner, Emma found herself sitting with Daniel on the small balcony. The sky had turned deep blue, and stars began to twinkle softly above the rooftops. The city lights shimmered like a distant galaxy, and the gentle breeze carried the faint scent of rain from earlier in the day. "I never realized how much I needed to say what I did today," Emma admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I thought I could carry it inside me forever, but it felt like letting go, finally speaking my heart." Daniel reached out, taking her hand in his. "And it was the right thing," he said. "Honesty, openness, that's what makes this strong. That's what makes us strong. And seeing Lily here, seeing our family together, it feels complete." Emma leaned against him, resting her head lightly on his shoulder. The warmth of his presence, the gentle squeeze of his hand, and the quiet comfort of knowing they had navigated the storm together filled her with a sense of peace she hadn't realized she'd been missing. Lily joined them a moment later, settling onto the small love seat beside them. "I feel like I've come home," she said softly, her voice full of sincerity. "Not just to a place, but to people who care, I think. We're really okay now." Emma smiled, feeling the tension of past weeks dissolve completely. "We are," she said. "We really are." They sat together in silence for a while, letting the night wrap around TH.